So it's been about a month, exactly a month since Election Day,
Yep.
and we kind of wanted to talk about our thoughts and feelings on the results of the election.
Yeah.
So, Cap, I know it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. I kind of want to get your opinions, particularly because both of us were pretty much in lockstep when it came to the Republican primaries just before it. Like, dude, just don't run anymore. Like, we don't like let's get the Republican Party back in the hands of Republicans instead of having it be a Trump cult. You
Yeah.
gotta kind of let Republicans be in control of the Republican Party instead of making it the Trump Party. But now that we're a month out of Election Day, what are you
Well,
thinking
we're making America great again. Um,
with
no,
the global hat?
yeah, like globalism, right? No, but no, so I've been kind of very I lean conservative. I am. I would just say I'm outright conservative for
Yeah,
most parts. I think when it comes down to it, is I'm not the biggest Trump fan, but there's some things I agree with economically, even foreign policy wise. A lot of things I do disagree with, but when Trump was the guy for the Republican Party, it's like okay, whatever, right? I would vote for a good Democrat if the Democrats actually had a good option. And the problem is, instead of having a good option, they had Biden trying to run, and then the corpse of Biden started failing, and then they forced Kamala Harris on us, who was terrible when she tried to run for president. She got demolished by Tulsi Gabbard,
would
who's
you have
now
would you have voted for Bernie Sanders?
I don't agree with his economic policy. I don't. There's a lot of things I don't agree with on Bernie Sanders, but the one thing I do give him as a human being, I think he's a good person.
Yeah,
Right?
I gotta
As a
give him
human
that.
being, I would vibe with him. If they came like with a moderate Democrat, somebody that just had some type of decent economic plan, lessen taxes a bit, and just when it came to war, and my opinion on this is a little bit less foreign war, a little bit less U.S. involvement, trying to be the world's police.
I totally agree with that too.
I think when it comes down to it, is the Democrats don't really have that, so they had to. Well, Biden really picked Kamala Harris, and I think not having a primary and allowing Democrat voters to really choose who they want to represent them shot them in the foot. Now, when you look at the election and you look at the millions of people that voted for Kamala Harris, I don't really view them as Kamala Harris voters. Excuse me.
Because they're not.
I really view that as like anti-Trump voters,
Absolutely.
and that's kind of my thing. Now, the Electoral College, he wiped the floor with her. I think on the popular vote, I think it's like 5 million or something now at this
He
point.
actually got more votes than his opponent this time. For
Yeah,
the
so
first time ever.
he won the popular vote, and to me, it just I'm in the wait and see. If Trump can pass some of these like some of these economic ideas of like lessening taxes, or in my personal opinion, I'd love to just have a straight flat tax and no tax, like no loophole bullshit. That would kind of solve a lot of problems in this country. But since all politicians have their money in different different pots, I should
Pockets.
say, yeah,
Hmm.
it probably will never happen. But to me, when I look at it, I'm just I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also not the biggest fan when I heard about the tariffs, because that's also like, yeah, you can increase tariffs, but there's also some ramifications for that, because if you make the tariffs that, it's gonna, you know, make the price rise, and things are already expensive as it is. There's a lot of things not going for Kamala Harris. I mean, they can claim that inflation is down since the beginning of the administration, but if you really look at it, the price of goods are up all the way across, and you can really go into a deeper conversation about supply chain and even get like what's that called, price gouging, and things of that nature, of people taking kind of advantage of a certain situation and try to make as much money as possible. But
Which they
uh,
did try to actively fight against. They
yeah,
were like, yo, we're going to make you pay for price gouging.
yeah,
They did
but
try.
but with all that kind of accumulating, and then we get into the Ukraine Russia conflict, and then even the Palestine versus Israel conflict. It's just there's a lot going on there, and I think Trump kind of just he humanized himself in a lot of different ways during this campaign, going on different podcasts, right? Like going on Flagrant 2, right? Going on like smaller end podcasts, and then even going on Joe Rogan. And then Kamala Harris' refusal to go on these shows unscripted, like refusal to go on Joe Rogan. It just, I think, kind of shot herself in the foot. And I don't think she was a great choice. I think she was actually a piss poor choice. But it's, you know, just another indication of how far we have fallen when it comes to our presidential candidates, that these are our two options. And kind of the biggest problem I have with the two-party system that we are currently engaged with, because all these debates are run by the Republicans and Democrats, and that's why we don't get viable and intelligent options, in my opinion. So I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see. The Republicans, I think they won the House and the Senate, right? So they're gonna have 4 years, or at least 2 years, to, hey, like, you have a lot of control. Can you actually fix this country? Can you solve the problems? Like, you know, the pandering, all the things that really don't matter, and all the virtue signaling. Like, can you make it so that when I go home, I can afford groceries? Can you make it so that every week when I get my paycheck, I get a little bit more money in my paycheck? Can you make my life easier? Republicans now have the opportunity that they've been clamoring for the longest time. They need to go ahead, get some policies that work, and make the everyday American's life better. And do I think they can do that? Possibly. Do I think they will? No. I mean, what are your thoughts after that election?
I'm going to reiterate something that I've been saying for a long time. This was the worst election in the history of the United States. The options that they gave you were Tweedledee versus Tweedledum. And I've been saying for a long time that whether you voted for Harris or you voted for Trump, one of those two administrations was going to do irreparable damage to the United States of America in the next 4 years. The difference is what kind of damage are they going to do? Now, when I was really forced with that gun to my head mentality, I won't say that I was happy that Trump won, but I was happy that Harris didn't win. No. And I got to say it from the perspective of, you know, a lot of what I saw during the campaign from a black man's perspective, and I've been anti-politics my entire life, and it has not changed. But I've said right here on this platform during live streams that after they used Barack Obama to browbeat and trying to shame black men into voting for someone they didn't want to vote for the reasons that they didn't want to vote for her, I thought that was absolutely disgusting. Yeah. To say that you are a bigot of some kind because you voted for one candidate over another is so un-American. I can't even put into words how un-American that is. And I don't give a if you are a staunch conservative or if you color your hair blue and you suck on man meat like Destiny on the left. I don't care. I do not care. You do not have the right to decide who other people vote for. You do not have the right to decide what other people should prioritize or what they believe in. Every American has the right to look at any candidate, good, bad, or indifferent, and then make their choices based upon what is important to them. And the way that the Kamala Harris campaign carried on, egregiously bad. On one end, you couldn't tell me what you actually had to offer the country. Your whole thing was, I'm not Orange Man bad, and if you don't vote for me, you hate women. And I've had to listen for the last month about all of these women talking about going on strike, and we're just going to go 4B. They don't even know what 4B is. We're going to join the 4B movement. There never was one. I'm never going to let a man touch me again because we have no rights. Tell me what rights were taken away on election night.
Tell me what rights you didn't have in the first place.
Hello.
I mean, I think, and I want to ask this, kind of going back to race, right? To me, the Democrat Party is the KKK party in disguise,
Well,
because
that the original Democrat Party, yeah. Right.
no, I mean modern day, because they just expect black men. They can insult them, they can degrade them, anything under the book, and they still depend on them for their vote. And that's why
Yeah.
you did see a percentage change of more black men voting conservative. Now, it wasn't like a massive, but it was a good percentage increase. And it makes me interested to see going forward. Like, is this just, are they going to stick with this script? Because it's clearly not working. Like
Well,
this whole,
to add some more context to what you just said about the like that KKK slavery mentality. So back in the old days, where white people were allowed to own black people for the purposes of the election, for every black slave that the slave owner owned, they got the power of 3 votes. That's the whole 3/5 human thing.
yeah,
So for the Democratic Party to believe that they are entitled to the black male vote is akin to believing that you own black men as if they're your
yeah,
slaves.
yeah. And that's, I think it's actually one of the reasons why, in my opinion, I view the Democrat Party as inherently
And
even a little
if
bit
you
more
actually gave a about black
racist.
men, you wouldn't have to try to use shaming tactics in the first place because they would have their own personal reasons and their own personal interests to make sure that you are voted into the White House. But the fact that you went through your campaign with, oh, if you don't vote for us, you're horrible, like we haven't been hearing that our entire lives.
Yeah.
And then you still got 78% of the black male vote, which you did not deserve.
Yeah, I agree. Did not
Okay.
deserve, especially with all the shaming language and all that insults. It's just it's saddening in a way of how brainwashed some people are. They'll vote blue regardless, and maybe they just didn't like Trump, right? So maybe that could also play a factor, right? But again, it wasn't a great look. I do also.
I wanted to kind of go through
Go
all
ahead.
of my analysis, and then we can break it
Sorry.
down.
Go ahead.
The next thing up is that good job for the Harris administration to not try to create any issue with the election. The votes were counted, you lost, you make your concession speech, and you disappear like you did the entire 4 years that you were the so called vice president. Go back to obscurity, go away. Good job on you for recognizing that America doesn't want you. And it's not because they don't want a woman as president, they don't want you as president. Getting into Donald Trump. I don't really like what his election means for the rule of law and how it is interpreted and enforced going forward. I really do believe that we have entered an era where you can be the biggest criminal, but as long as you get voted into the White House, all is absolved. I don't really like that. However, when has the federal government not been corrupt? So he's just like the
Fair point.
latest in a long line of corrupt guys. I will say that in the last month, a lot of his cabinet picks are either not qualified, inexperienced, or actual felons. I don't like that. Some of these guys, and it just seems like the main reason for getting a cabinet spot is how much you bend over and spread your cheeks for Donald Trump. And I just don't think that you can run a successful government that way. We've
I think
seen
that,
a lot of
yeah.
cronies and loyalist governments around the world, and things don't really normally go very well.
There was a
Now,
few. There was
I
a few
will go
people I would
back.
say.
I will
Yeah.
go back to the first 4 years. If you really think about it, besides the pandemic, which was not Trump's fault,
Right.
Trump was not a good president. But what was the worst he did? He said horrible, disgusting things on Twitter. He didn't really do a lot of bad things while in the White House. That being said, I do have some concerns for what we have to look forward to as far as the presidency. Number one, foreign policy. I do believe that Donald Trump, he had already done some damage to our military alliances around the world, and I think that he is going to double, triple, and quadruple down on those. And I just think that even if we get away from being Team America World Police, which, just like you, Cap, I'm very, very much opposed to this country basically trying to make the entire planet Earth the United States of Earth. I don't like that, right? But I do think that military alliances are important, and harming the military alliances with the countries that you do have, it just puts you in a bad position. Now, I don't like this whole throw all these billions of dollars at Ukraine. I don't really love that very much, but I don't also know enough about the conflict and the overall ramifications to say whether or not it is a good or bad thing. One of the things that I can tell you that I do not like is that for 4 years I've had to hear about Bidenomics from people that don't know anything about economics or politics. A bunch of people running their mouth that don't know what they're talking about. And now I fear that we're going to be in a situation where inflation is about to go through the roof because of all the tariffs that have been threatened against not just China, but we're talking about Canada, Mexico, BRICS, which includes India, where the United States have been trying to keep a positive relationship with, and Brazil, particularly India and Brazil, trying to keep, and South Africa, trying to keep good relationships with those types of countries. And when you're looking at the situation in Asia, where you have potential geopolitical enemies in Russia and China, having India on your side is very important. So for him to be like, hey, I'm going to throw out 100% tariff this and 60% tariff that and 25% tariff that. Guys who talked about Bidenomics these last 4 years, are you prepared to have to pay 50% more, twice as much, 150% more for goods that you have come to rely on for the last 20 years? You talked about all of this inflation. You're really about to feel this if Donald Trump is not bluffing. So those are like the main problems that I have. Now, of course, when it comes to wokeism, some woke stuff is legitimate. But pushing back hard body on wokeism and getting rid of DEI is something that I mostly, not 100%, but I mostly support. I think that the wokeism has gone way too far. Yeah. And I would like to see us get a little bit more toward the middle. I don't want people to start persecuting people based upon the fact that they're in the alphabet soup or the fact that they're darker than Caucasian. I don't want that. But it's gone too far. So my hopes for the next 4 years, Cap, is that we now become a successful podcast because this is now a white-owned business. Absolutely. And I'm hoping that the damage that can be done by this administration will be limited. But I also fear that if Americans see that their economic situation gets worse in the next 2 years, the Republicans are going to lose the majority in the House and the Senate. And then you're going to have a lame duck presidency where for the last 2 years, nothing gets done. And that's not really where we want to go as a country. We want to continue to move things forward, not backwards.
Yeah. So, like, obviously we both want, whether you like him or not, we both want him to do well in office because that means America does well. We'll see with the tariffs. Some of the tariffs that Trump put in place when he was originally in office are still in place through Biden's administration. I do think him having the massive percentages he was saying is just ridiculous. And I think a lot of that's campaign speech, if I'm being honest with you, because it was like, we're going to build that wall. We're going to make them build it for us. And
no, but he's already gotten the presidency, and now he's talking about 100% tariffs against BRICS. That was just this last week.
But I wrote, so I'm more talking about when he was talking about tariffs when he was on the campaign run before the election.
Right, but now he's really bumping up the rhetoric on tariffs, making them worse and worse and worse.
I mean, we'll see. I think if someone if someone really kind of talks, I mean, obviously some tariffs to a degree they work, but if you're going to have them so high, it actually affects more the everyday consumer and that it would affect the rich.
And the thing is,
So
Cap, I think that the cat is out of the bag. I know why Trump wants to do it, and I don't disagree with Trump's methodology. Trump's methodology is that if we make it so hard, if we make your product unbuyable, you're going to bring manufacturing back to our country and then the jobs with it. And then we will be a more self sufficient country because we don't have to worry about getting labor or cheap goods from China when they can just take it from us because they are geopolitical enemy. I get that. But the thing is that do you really think that the business owner in the United States who cares about profits above all, if they've been paying less than minimum wage to people who, let's say, are just migrants or they are asylum, what is it, asylum seekers or just outright illegal, right? If you kick them all out of the country, do you really think that employers are going to say, you know what, we're going to pay a living wage to Americans to do these jobs? No, they're just they're just going to go out of business, right?
Yeah, I know. Listen, I agree.
I don't know if you're going to bring fucking manufacturing back to the United States because the profit margin is too fucking wide.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Is that like I understand the principle, but I'm also in line with you that the reason why a lot of these manufacturing stuff went outside the country is because it would cost too much here to make them. It just would, because we have minimum wage. We have, I mean, which everybody's trying to get. There's some states it's like $20 now, but I don't know what it is in New York. I think it's 15 or is it 18 now?
15. I think the max that you'll see minimum wage is 15, but then in some places in California it's like 22.
Yeah, so which you still can't live off of in there, which is sad.
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes down to it, we'll see how that plays out. And as we're speaking with the wokeism thing, that's hot take. I think that's what kind of lost.
Oh yeah, that's won him the election. Yeah,
like that won him the election by far. People are tired of being called bigots, racist, misogynistic, just because they believe that a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
And Destiny is a cuck.
And Destiny is a cuck. Right? Like, there's some firm beliefs in this country, and that's one of them. But
he's not just a cuck. He's a cuck that also does cleanup.
I think when it comes down to it, the LGBT plus mafia gang, people are getting tired of it. They're the vast minority of this country. I'm not saying this; they don't deserve respect, but percentage-wise, they're not the majority, and we're trying to placate to them like they are the majority, right? Like, as someone that's looking to have kids, I don't want a grown-ass man in the women's bathroom.
I don't think that a grown-ass man should be fined $100,000 because he said no homo. I think that's ridiculous. And people are getting tired of it. I don't think that a guy who just says no homo jokingly should be fined $100,000 for it, like what happened to LaMelo Ball a couple weeks ago.
No, I think
people are really getting tired of the wokeism and browbeating people into a bloody pulp into the ground because they're not always celebrating the alphabet soup. Like, people are getting tired of that all the way around.
Most people, right? Like, just you want who you fuck. They don't care. Most people do not genuinely care. I don't go out of my way and be like, ugh, who? I don't care. Like, you do you. But at the same time,
don't bring that shit to me.
Stay away from the kids, and just understand that in the grand scheme of things, like everybody else, nobody gives a fuck about you. This is the truth. So yeah, people just day-to-day life. We don't think LGBT plus, and it's not because you're a bigot or anything of that nature. It's because we're just living our own lives, trying to do our own thing. Don't force your dogma. Don't force, like they say with Christians, like, don't force your religion on me. Well, don't force your religion on me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what it is. It's a religion. Yep. It's a cult. So I think that's the main reason that kind of won him the election, because people are sick and tired of it. And we'll see.
But I also think they erroneously think that he's going to fix the economy. And I'm not really seeing any signs that he is actually going to do things that is going to actually fix the economy. I will say that Wall Street is bullish on him being the president, which might help because of investor perception. If the Fed continues to reduce interest rates, that might be something good for the economy. But I still think that AI, maturing is going to take away jobs regardless of who's president. I
Yeah.
think that prices are going to continue to go up because that's just inflation. That's just what it is. And
Right.
inflation has been a thing long before the pandemic. So,
We'll see. We'll see how things go, man. For sure, it's going to be
yeah, but
very,
one
very
of the things
interesting.
is, I will say, as far in my criticism towards liberals, this whole the sky is falling chicken little shit, you guys look like a bunch of children.
Yeah.
You guys survived the 4 years during Trump, and you guys were not led in chains, naked, pregnant in the kitchen. That's not what happened.
Oh, can I say this? Can I say this? There's one thing I gotta say. When you had like politicians like Obama say, "Oh, you're gonna put them put you back in chains," when you had all these like people coming out and say that Trump's he's gonna have a concentration camp full of black people. Like it just didn't happen. Didn't happen when his first term. Not gonna happen now. Can we stop the fear mongering and stop acting like everyday Americans are that stupid? Now, mind you, some of them are really that stupid, but not all of them. And I'm hoping personally, I'm hoping the next election we have something. I mean, I would say the silver lining out of all of this is certain, I would say, establishment Democrats and Republicans will not run next election, right? Like, there's not going to be a Clinton. Trump's going to be kind of, that's going to be a wrap there. Uh, really, maybe it allows a new voice to come in and actually, I don't know, run the country better. I don't know. We'll see.
But
And I
also,
know,
one of the things we haven't talked about is the fact that Trump is old as. Like I still thought, I still think that there's a chance that Biden might shuffle off his mortal coil before January 20th, 2025. I mean, they're old as. These are old ass men,
yeah,
right?
Trump's like what, 78?
I think he's closer to 80.
Yeah, hold on.
I think it's closer to 80 now. What, 78, 79, something like that?
Yeah, I know he's old as dirt. I'm just,
So
yeah,
I just, we don't really know exactly what the next 4 years are actually going to hold.
yeah,
You might have
78.
J.D. Vance as president in 2027. We don't know. We don't know.
Dude, Trump's birthday is one day before mine. That's
Okay.
crazy. Just random. I did not know that. But yeah, 78. I mean, maybe JD Vance is the guy for the Republicans. I would say when I watched some of the debates, he came off as intelligent. I mean, he was good at the debate. I mean, Waltz, that was an interesting choice as a vice president for Harris. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see who the new
I
blood will
forgot
be
who he
for
was
both parties.
already. Nobody gives a.
Yeah, he was the guy from Minnesota that who lied about his service and then also uh, hid and ran in his house during the riots. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. But we'll see how it is. I'm hoping the election. I mean, sorry, I'm hoping America does well the next 4 years. I'm hoping the country does great. I don't think it's going to be as bad as some Democrats are saying, but I also don't think it's going to be as great as some Republicans are going to say. I think it's just going to be uh, just an average presidency, and possibly could be even a below average one if he does go forward with these tariffs.
And my final thoughts on this is, especially for these people who are like jerking themselves off to Trump winning, or the liberal losers who are beating their breast and gnashing their teeth. I hate to be the bearer of reality, but if Kamala Harris would have won, if you're a liberal and you're a loser, you would have still been a liberal loser for 4 years under Kamala Harris. If you were a loser under the first Trump White House and you wasn't getting no pussy and no money, and you were still a loser under Biden, getting no pussy and no money, it is probably likely that you're still going to be a loser getting no pussy and no money under the Trump administration.
Yeah,
All you guys, pumping your fist about Trump winning, a lot of you are losers, and you will remain so. And it
make
doesn't matter
sure.
who the president is. And if you're a winner at life, you don't really care that much who the president is. You don't really care that much because the president doesn't really have that much of an effect on your day to day, you're going to find a way to win regardless of who is in the White House. And if you were a broke bum over the last 8 years, the next 4 years, you're likely to still be a broke bum.
So shout out, make sure to subscribe to the India Jesus on youtube.com. If you want poverty on the Republican slant, that's your man. So I am Captain Paul. That is DEG. We are a white run podcast now. We used to be a black owned business, but we're switching up due to beat a Trump. So we appreciate it if you hit that like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want hilarity and failure, make sure to check out the Indian Jesus on youtube.com. I am Captain Paul. That is DG. We're the TSP podcast, and we'll see you in the next one.